Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your Cannabis Business podcast. Today, we're going to take a look at a report from Benzinga on the oddest cannabis laws and regulations. To help us unpack that, Katrina Glogowski, attorney and angel investor. Katrina Glogowski, thanks for being back on the podcast.
Thanks, Josh.
So number one is don't transport cannabis by boat in California.
Oh dear, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
What's the rationale for that?
I don't know. I mean, in Washington, we wanted to have tours on Lake Union and Lake Washington and couldn't because of the feds getting involved. So I think Coast Guard is in charge of those areas. So that was kind of a big no-no. But according to the state's Bureau of Cannabis Control, requirements for the transportation of cannabis goods is illegal to transport any cannabis product by way of aircraft, watercraft, drone, rail, human-powered vehicle, or unmanned vehicle. So, I mean, they're just covering their bases, I guess.
I guess. I mean, I understand international waters and Coast Guard involvement and the historical prosecution of individuals transporting cannabis, even though it's legal in California. But it's just funny. Human-powered vehicles, that means you can't transport it by a bike.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have cannabis delivery in California, so I guess you have to have at least a electric vehicle, if nothing else, to deliver your car, to deliver your weed. Okay, that's good. What's next?
All right, no italics. So you can have a very non-italicized cannabis dispensary sign in Las Vegas.
No italics. Okay.
So for the name, it has to have clean fonts, which states specifically are sans serif fonts.
Okay.
So in Washington, there was a company that actually got fined because they spelled pot with Christmas lights. So I know in Washington, we have our own unique issues. In Oregon, so they legalized recreational cannabis in 2014. So the signs of the entrances of dispensaries must be bold, 80-point Times New Roman font. No options for italics.
I am sure somebody somewhere had a reason for that. That's interesting, though. Okay. No.
All right, moving on. Number 3, you can't spell weed in the nation's capital if you also do auto repairs. So you can't sell cannabis in DC if you also do auto repairs. That had to come up from somewhere.
First of all, you wouldn't want to do such a thing because of the 280E complications. You'd tank your auto repair business. But my dear, to have it legislatively spelled out, that's just nuts, Josh.
Washington has a law where you can't take a goldfish on public transportation. But I think this particular one in DC, they got diesel mixed up. They didn't understand like diesel is not, that's not at a garage. It's not in an auto place. So our lawmakers, they're just not figuring it out. Number 4 on the list, marijuana is legal in Michigan, but marijuana isn't. So the spelling of marijuana with an H is legal, but marijuana with a J, not so much.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, you know what? You need to draw the line in the sand somewhere, Josh.
So their line in the sand came from the Michigan primary, from the spelling that was chosen for the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. Michigan adopted its statutory definition from marijuana in the Public Health Code, utilizing the current federal spelling of marijuana with an H.
Go Michigan.
All right, do your thing, Michigan. Number 5. So if you like to smell weed before you buy it, not in Washington or California, that's a no-no.
This is just absurd. We have been complaining about the sale of cannabis in Washington. You can't see it, smell it, touch it, taste it. And I'm not talking about sampling. I'm talking about you cannot determine what you are buying. You cannot open the package. And other states that we've been to, Josh, they have samples on the counter, not to try, but to review and look for contamination, to smell and try the terpene profile. But not in Washington, and that's one of the stupidest laws that we have on the books.
I've never been to Cuba, but I imagine that it's kind of like going back in the 50s or 60s, old classic cars and everything. And every time I go to Portland, it's like a time machine where I go back to 2015 and they have jars and tongs. And I'm like, what are you doing? That's amazing. Because we're used to those space bags with the little window in it, but everything's Mylar. And it makes about as much sense as the Washington state law that makes it mandatory for women to leave the house with a hat. I think that law is from like the 1900s or something, that women had to leave the house. They had to wear a hat. So, pretty stupid. I think that pretty much wraps this up. Katrina Glogowski, angel investor and attorney, thanks for wrapping up these odd cannabis laws and regulations with us.
Thanks for having me, Josh, and a little bit of humor in the day always helps.
With that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.